Alright, everyone. So in today's sponsored interview and AMA, I'm sitting down with Pat, who is the COO at Velo Labs. We're going to be talking about everything that they've been working on as they aim to build a suite of technologies for what they call Web3 plus. Pat, thank you so much, man, for making the time. I know we're on different ends of the world, so I appreciate you making the time. I'm excited to talk about all that is Velo Finance. I know you guys have a lot of different technologies you're working on, from Universe to Orbit, as well as Nova Chain. So I want to kind of not only give people a primer on all these things as we go through the conversation, but before we do that, I would love to just give people an opportunity to learn about who you are as an individual, as the CEO of the project. What is Velo Labs? And outside of that as well, what are the specific issues and challenges that you guys are solving for as a network?
Yeah, thank you so much, Nick, for having me on this channel. So my name's Pat. I came prior to Web3. I came from a venture capital background, and now at Velo, I work as the COO, Chief Operating Officer. Yeah, so basically, I'm Thai. Grew up here in Bangkok and working on really exciting things at Velo.
Very cool. So I'm curious to hear like a little bit now about like what you guys are doing at Velo, because you kind of your knowledge from a traditional VC background. How are you plugging that into Velo, and where are you guys looking to leave some disruptions within Web3 and crypto?
So we're really looking to build sort of a next generation financial services on Web3, but also looking to connect between Web2 and Web3. Sort of that's why we coined the term Web3 plus. Coming from a traditional background, we understand more of, I guess, the technology side, but also how to work well with the traditional finances. And we also see that sort of value that we can apply to. That's why we sort of been building a lot of infrastructure, connections through our partnerships to really build that sort of services that could cater to people in Web3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess like from a broad overview and stuff, you guys are fixing one of the biggest issues, which is kind of the on and on ramp from traditional liquidity and assets that exist in the world of traditional finance. I've been big on DeFi since 2019, and this has probably been one of the biggest and I think I don't know, misaddressed issues in the crypto space, because we believe that if we just build, projects will come, or more importantly, capital will just come from the traditional world. But there are tens of trillions of dollars of assets that can come into DeFi, but unfortunately, they just can't because of these barriers to on-ramping. So I would love to hear, maybe we can dive a little bit now into talking about the technology of Velo and how you guys are aiming to solve for this. So I'd love to hear a little bit about kind of the product arc of Velo Finance from Universe,
Yeah.
Orbit, and Nova Chain, how they all maybe play together, and outside of that as well, where Velo as a token plays a role within that ecosystem as well.
So I guess Velo started from, just to give you a background, started from looking in terms of money movements. So international remittance using blockchain technology. Moving beyond that, we see that going forward, it's not just sort of a one service. We want to build an ecosystem of a suite of services that really caters to the needs of people. That's why the product later on we'll touch on Universe as sort of liquidity aggregator. That helps sort of acquire liquidity from Web2 or Web3 together. And then the Orbit, which is a wallet that plays into that as well, which allows for payments. Plug into that with our remittance to our partners with license on-off ramp. Then we can build this whole thing together to provide sort of a suite of services that covers end-to-end, where people can convert fiat into crypto through a licensed entity, come trade on our Universe, and then also use it for payments through our Orbit, and then off ramp through a similar channel through a licensed partner as well.
So okay,
Yeah,
sorry,
sorry.
continue.
Yeah, Velo tokens, right? So Velo tokens is, it originally was a collateral for our stable coins that issued, but now also used as sort of a incentivization rewards as well for people within the ecosystem, to incentivize people to do certain actions that benefit the ecosystem. Also, to provide similar to a loyalty points, where the more term tokens you have, the more benefits you get out of the ecosystem.
Very cool. So there's multiple uses for the core token itself tied towards actual usage of the protocol. I'm curious, like, to get back to talking about some of those different projects that you guys have been working on under Velo Labs. So if I understand it correctly, the purpose of Universe is essentially essentially to be a replacement for a traditional centralized exchange, but essentially built for a Web3 interface. So this would allow you guys to be able to allow people to have a central place to trade a whole range of different cryptocurrency assets. I know you guys have it live right now on the website. You can kind of start to see the order book in play and people can start to place trades. So that's the core use of Universe, but it's not only an on-ramp into the crypto space to be able to get access to digital assets, but also to use them as well from a similar interface for payments. And that's where Orbit comes in. I mean, this is something for me that's quite interesting because I think it's a huge segment that's been kind of left behind within crypto. And outside of that as well, you guys are focused not only on, in this case, of getting fiat into crypto, but also being able to utilize that crypto for actual commercial purposes as well. So that really interests me. They all kind of play off one another.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I wouldn't say replace but I think, learning from, what happened in the, I guess, in the last cycle,
Mhm.
what brought a lot of people down was, you know, a lot of people got, I guess, with FTX, realized that there's a third party risk where when the control of your funds are with somebody else, there's always a chance that that person will lose that funds. So I
Mhm.
think, we sort of want to create an avenue for people that have that sort of concern, but still want to trade in an order book style format to come to your universe and trade it. And beyond that, right, we see a lot of large communities of traders that also trade on things like commodities and FX. So we want to sort of have that all together in one place where you can
Mhm.
trade crypto, you can trade FX, you can trade commodities.
Now, for me, that's interesting because I know a lot of people who watch the channel are kind of solely focused on crypto, but there's also a lot of people here who watch DataDash who are interested in the macro scene. That's something I've been trading for 12 years. So any place where I can also trade crypto, but also trade Forex and commodities really interests me. So that's awesome to see you guys have that kind of 360 spectrum for investment class assets. So I wanted to hear a little bit though, like, because I understand Velo Labs has been around for a little while. And I know you
Yeah.
guys are making continued upgrades. You guys made a pretty big update to your white paper in 2023. And
Yeah.
this obviously encompasses some of the things we've been kind of talking about here. But I'd not only like to hear from you, being the CEO, like what's the kind of broad vision of some of these changes and how you guys plan to kind of disrupt the Web3 ecosystem with your Web3 plus initiatives. So essentially, again, this can do a little bit with the universe, but I think it has to play with a broader vision as well.
Yeah. So essentially, like I mentioned earlier, right? Initially, the original white paper for Velo focuses only on remittance, using
Mhm.
Velo as a sort of a collateral asset for minting V style stablecoins, whether that's EUS, USDV, EURV, etc. But we see that there's large opportunities and other large, services that we can cater. So the new update to the white paper touches on the newer products that were coming out. So now we're sort of, and then the old product sort of gets a rebrand. So now I see, the core products as three. So there's Quantum, which is the previous product for remittance. Universe, which is, as I mentioned, is a liquidity aggregator, and then Orbit, which is a payment, specifically a QR code payment technology. And the reason why we went with QR code is just because we're focusing on Southeast Asia, and QR code payment is the number one standard for payments. And if you go around, in this region, you'll notice that QR code is sort of the preferred method of payments for even just street vendors.
Yeah.
So three, sort of three core products. But then we also have other products that sort of serve as a support. So Nova Chain is a chain that we launched. It's slightly different from many other chain in that the gas fee is the gas is free essentially, and that's because we want to bring more people into the Web3 world. We find that having a other chain, let's say Ethereum, right? When you have to acquire Ethereum and then use that as a gas fee, right? That's a barrier for a lot of people who would have to find ways to get their hands on one stable coin to get Ethereum, then put it in a MetaMask wallet, right? So
Exactly.
having a Nova chain is a different channel, basically, that lets you let any users to one stop, one click, create a wallet, have a chain, and be able to transfer those funds automatically or right away.
Yeah, I was going to mention, Pat, this kind of like makes me think about two things. One, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like in one of my previous crypto wallet projects, we had this issue where, again, gas was the concern that I thought about back in 2019, that there's all these great DeFi apps, but no one's going to want to have to get, Ethereum to go out and just do a simple swap or send transaction of a stable coin. And I think the use of meta transactions, this ability where you can essentially have gasless transactions, is incredibly powerful for DeFi adoption towards a broader audience because you don't have to buy gas to do bank transfers, right? So no one's going to use Web3 unless that's the standard. But outside of this, well, you were mentioning, Pat, like you're focused on Southeast Asia. And I remember when I was in Thailand, when I've been in Singapore and so many regions throughout that area, I mean, you see that QR code payments are really the standard. It's mainstream, people get it. So I'm really interested again to see like how has that traction been so far with like the utilization of QR code payments? Has it been like seamless? And I know that you guys also have blended in with an existing popular payment system that utilizes QR codes. If you could maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So for I will have to preface that Orbit is still in the early stages of being rolled out. I
Right.
believe we're just in the sort of very small groups of testing or very limited. But in terms of QR code payments, right? There is a regional standard for QR code payments that we could plug into.
Hmm.
We had a conscious decision to decide whether when we create Orbit, we actually basically base our QR code payments on this standard. So basically, in terms of merchants, they don't need to change the QR code. They don't need to have another QR code. This
Mm.
QR code can automatically be linked to their Web3 wallet. So in terms of the user interface, it's very easy, both on the merchant and on the user side, where you can use in Thailand, you can use your traditional banking apps here to pay with fiat currency, but also you can use Universe and use the same QR code for payments.
Wow, that's very cool. I mean, that's one of the biggest issues is that like any kind of new point of sale system, I know this in the US, for example, getting like you could build something that would cost 0% for the merchant, but it's just so difficult to get it there because there's no easy standard or integrated way to be able to do so. So I think that's amazing that you guys have that opportunity to be able to plug into an existing framework of point of sale systems where QR codes are the standard format. People are familiar with it, and it doesn't require that they even adopt Universe as a technology. So it's very cool. But so
Yeah, adopt is a key word here, right? How do you
yeah.
an awesome technology FRI, but how do you make people adopt it? You got to make it as easy as possible for
Yeah.
people to then switch over. Yeah.
Very cool. No, but I'm curious, like, so now, like, I've got a good idea as well, like, from the research I did in our conversation around the payments side of things. But focusing on Web3, like, what are some of the advantages that Velo has compared to a lot of Web3 projects? Because there's all types of alternative L1s or L2s to Ethereum. We know Ethereum has its problems, but I'm curious, like, where you see Velo fitting into the whole spectrum with its offering versus other types of layer one or layer two ecosystems, or maybe even particular DeFi apps.
Um, I don't believe we're competing with layer ones. Nova Chain itself, I see as one chain. We work with multiple chains. We support BSC. We're also working closely to implement any other chains in to allow people more channels from other chains to divert liquidity to Universe. So we're not competing on that. Nova Chain is sort of, if you can, I guess the analogy I would see is that Novachain is for a certain group of users who might be very, very new to crypto, but other people, with crypto and other chains, we want to create more roads that leads them to us, to Universe. So we're, always looking for new partnerships with different chains to allow for people to more easily move their funds over and enjoy the benefits that our ecosystem provide.
Very cool. And I heard that you guys have in 2024, like there's a pretty big piece of news that just dropped as well, where Velo and PTL Holdings are going to be elevating Laos digital economy. So I'm curious to hear, like, to get a bit more understanding about what that partnership's going to bring and what it really means for Velo as well. Because you guys are,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, this is a partnership that is, I think, very, very exciting.
mm,
This is potentially going to be a very big real world use case of, I guess, Web3 technology and connecting it to real world usage. We're very excited, to be to have this partnership. I'm not sure I can disclose a lot of details at this moment. But just to elaborate, right? There's a lot of issues in terms of fund movements, in terms of payments within Laos or even cross border. There's statistics like there's 700,000 Laos workers in Thailand that every day send the money back over to Laos, and they're using very traditional means, not even traditional financial institution like banks, right? And they're paying large amounts of fees to do this, and there's an opportunity there that you can offer some sort of a hybrid model, working with different local partners to offer a better service, a better product that could capture sort of this type of service, right? But there's any area, large other opportunities to connect rural assets. Laos, as you may or may not know, has a lot of real world assets, natural resources, gold, any copper, etc. And allowing that sort of value to be captured somehow in Web3 would also provide large liquidity as well. So there's a lot of things that we can work on potentially, and we're always looking at things. Obviously, some will take longer, some will take shorter time to implement. So please wait and see what we can in the next updates of what this partnership could be. But beyond just Laos, right? This is sort of the type of model and partnerships that we're working on in our pipeline that we could apply to other countries within this region as well. So I mean, it's very exciting, this partnership to us, to Velo ecosystem.
No, I think it's really interesting, Pat, because obviously I've always wanted to see disruption in remittance markets. I mean, I guess from experience and stuff, like just how difficult it is for people who are trying to get money back home and how many middlemen you have to work through that really have been, they're not adding any value to the process. But outside of that, when we think about DeFi as a market, I think DeFi in its peak back in 2021, if you're looking at the value of stable coins and digital assets that were on DeFi protocols, it was like maybe 150 billion max, like across all ecosystems. And you think about, like, many people may not think immediately that Laos might be a good market to tackle, but as you mentioned, there's tons of real world assets there. That's a huge narrative this year that a lot of people focused on. And I think that even if you just target a single market like that that's ready for that change and is ripe for it and making these kind of partnerships, I mean, that can catapult you guys to being one of the larger DeFi protocols. It doesn't take too long to get there. So I like this focus, again, as you mentioned, on real world assets. I think that's going to be an interesting focal point, and we'll see how that goes throughout the year. But I wanted to dive a little bit as well into the PTL holdings as well, and how you guys are working with them. How does this kind of reflect that broader change of tone, like overall for crypto and Web3? Because I mean, that's a pretty big partnership that you guys have landed, but do you see this as kind of the start of something much bigger, that Southeast Asia wants to become this broader hub for crypto and Web3, similar to kind of nations like El Salvador as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think looking back in development in other areas, right? I think there's a large gap in terms of financial services there's a large problem that's not being met by traditional finances or traditional financial service sector, right? So if you come in and come up with a best solution, I think there's a more urgency or more incentive for people to switch over. I look at it in terms of like in Africa, they don't have a lot of banks. And then suddenly you have mobile payments and people suddenly switch over, right? So you can have something similar where you skip a certain cycle, in Europe or so it's harder for people to move from credit cards to something else because it only offers an incremental benefit to that change. Whereas if you go into areas which does not have any needs being met, and you offer a much better product or services, then it's more incentive for people to adopt and on a large scale. So it's a large opportunities to come in and basically convert large amounts of peoples over to the Web3 world. Whereas if you go into a developed market where their needs are being met, it's harder to convince them to move over. If you don't provide enough incentive. So Lao is it's
a perfect
one of
test
those,
ground.
Yeah. And then once you have sort of an established, ecosystem use cases, then you can adapt it to other countries or other areas with similar needs, or even if other developed countries can see that it provides enough benefits, then maybe they will be more incentivized to adopt.
Yeah, very cool. No, I think Pat, like what's exciting about this is it's not only that you guys have built a really interesting technology suite. I like the broader vision of how each product kind of plays into one another. But outside of that as well, you guys are focused on a market that I think really needs DeFi and Web3. So I'm very excited to see you guys have this focus on it. I guess looking back on 2023, Velo's made a lot of progress. What are the major milestones Velos has achieved in this case, like during the past few months, you guys as Velo Labs and all the products you worked on? And what are the big plans going forward for 2024 that people can look forward to? And maybe even along with that as well, what's the best place for people to maybe follow you guys? And I'll leave the links down below in the description if you guys want to check it out, but any places that might be good for them to continue keeping up with you guys.
Yeah, so I look back in terms of 2023 or even 2022 as sort of the building period. We've been building Universe and Orbits and all these other products I mentioned for the past year, 2 years. And also beyond just on the product side, we've also been building key connections, partnerships, even through our partners with license. Lease licensing takes time, effort, and money to acquire, and having these is sort of almost sort of a unique touch point for us that people can't easily replicate as well. So having these sort of networks set up is great for us moving forward, because now we can build, looking towards this year 2024 as sort of the growth period for a project where you see our products coming to market, trying to find that growth in terms of user base, growing use cases. So it's very exciting for us going forward, because now sort of we're building it and now we're just accelerating.
Yeah, so you guys are focused this year on deploying, on realizing a lot of those things that you guys have built. I know you mentioned earlier with Orbit, you slowly starting to test that out. Is there potential for in 2024 that you guys would roll that out en masse, like for Orbit as a payment solution? You guys feeling like that might be in the cards?
I mean, I definitely, I think you'll see Orbit being rolled out sometime this year with different use cases. It will definitely come to market. Beyond just that, we're also building key connections, partnerships that would hopefully also help us grow much quicker.
I'm sorry, I had to push you on that one. I had to hear if it was going to come this year. I mean, it sounds really exciting, man. I'm very excited to see, how things go with Orbit. I'm happy to hear that the tests so far are already going quite well. I like Universe. I went through the UX on the entire kind of Web3 interface that you guys have built. I think it's really intuitive. And I'm again very excited to see even more of this happening as well in Southeast Asia. I think it's a great prime market for a lot of Web3 adoption. And I know there's also some great ecosystems there that I've gotten to meet over the last few years. So, Pat, pleasure to have you here, man. Thank you again for making the time. And again, is there anywhere people would also be able to follow you, maybe on Twitter or anything from Velo Labs as a team?
Yeah, it's best to follow the official channel for Velo Labs.
Okay.
So we have Twitter, Discord, and Telegram group. You can follow. We also our own website to follow any updates as well.
Very cool. Well, I'll leave the link down to in the description to the website where you guys will be able to get access to all those links on their website. But Pat, thank you so much, man, for making the time. It was a pleasure to get to chat with you and kind of go through all these different topics. And I'm excited for what you guys get to do in 2024. I'll be looking forward to it.
Thank you so much for having me, Nick.
Awesome. Thanks, Pat.